All right, guys, we are back with the 993 safely at home. I've had it here in Atlanta for about the last week, call it. I'm working on registration and all that kind of stuff. So today, finally have some time this weekend to kind of properly dial in at least the exterior of the car. That's the goal. Exterior is in really good shape. Previous owner basically garage kept it, so it's super good. Just some really light, small swirl marks, you know, kind of stuff you'd expect. So I'm not going to go too crazy on it. Kind of walk you through each product I'm going to use. If it had some deeper scratches, I'd probably go with some pretty heavy cutting compounds, but instead I'm going to use more polishing compounds. And then I'm really stoked to try a couple new things from Assess Garage. Previously, for all compounding, polishing, wax sealant, I had been doing all chemical guys. That's what I had used mostly on the black 996 I had. But with this new one, I want to try a couple products from Matt and the Obsessed Garage team that he really recommends from a sealant and wax perspective. So stay tuned, walk you through each step as I do it. But the first step is going to be just to wash her down real quick, do a clay bar on that, remove any contaminants. You know, I did drive 1,000 miles to bring it home. So we'll clay bar it and get that piece of the puzzle done, and then we'll start to get to the finer points of polish and wax. So stay tuned. Alright guys, so for the clay piece, what I am using is chemical guys. I've got leftovers, and so I want to go out and buy something brand new while I've still got it. So we'll be using a clay block from them. I'm a fan of the block. You know, the bar, the clay putty, basically. I think it's kind of a pain. You know, you got to continue to knead it and whatever. I like the block. Really easy to use. You know, in this storage case, basically keeps it you know, in good shape. But you know, look, long and the short is, it's just a block, right? Foam on this side, clay on that side. So it gives you a nice, you know, kind of thing to grip. And then, you know, just a little bit of lubrication. Some people say, look, just use water. Some people have something specific. You know, is this a marketing ploy to, you know, basically provide clay lube? Maybe. I mean, it works well. In my opinion, it is a synthetic lubricant. So in terms of what's in here, who knows, but you know, it does a trick. So I went ahead and picked up a bottle. This was cheap. So with the two of these, we'll go ahead and clay the car. And again, this step is really to remove any contaminants that are sitting on top of the paint. The last thing you want to do is to start compounding or polishing with any kind of contaminants on the paint, because then all you're going to do is actually push those into the paint, create new swirl marks and scratches, and you'll really just be chasing those all day. So want to do this step first. We'll wet the car down essentially. We'll use this lube on top of that just to keep nice lubrication. You really want this to be not quite like super slick, like totally wet, but not quite dry. So you want like a little bit of resistance. It's kind of like a real happy medium with how lubricated. As you do it for 30 seconds, like, you'll start to understand, if you've never clayed a car, kind of where that sweet spot is. But you want just a little bit of resistance to be pulling off the contaminants, but enough lubrication to where, you know, it's not like super dry and you're kind of scratching up the paint. So we'll do that next. Move on to the next step. So claying's done. In all honesty, maybe wasn't a needed step. The previous owner obviously took better care of this than I thought, because when I went to clay it, I got almost no resistance. It was silky smooth, very little, like you feel little bumps in the bar if there are little like bugs and contaminants and stuff stuck on there. I didn't feel any of that. It's one of those steps you don't know until you do it and start kind of going over panels, whether it does or does not need to be clayed. So literally took 5 minutes to do that. I mean, I know it's a small car, but it's a worthwhile step. You know, take the 5 to 10, just clay it to be sure you're starting with a very good base of nothing on the paint. So that when you do the subsequent steps, you're good to go. So next up, just simple wash. So you want to get all that contaminant off to the extent you took some off, the clay lube, all that crap off. Wash it down with the normal technique. I use a 2-bucket method, a wash bucket with soap and whatnot, and a rinse bucket, which is just water, both with a dirt collector. I use 1 mitt, all kinds of debate about 2 mitts or 5 mitts or 8 buckets. You know, I just go 2 buckets and 1 mitt. I mean, it does the job. If your car's relatively clean, take good care of it, it shouldn't have that much contamination and dirt on it in the first place. So yeah, we'll do 2 bucket method, foam cannon, using Adam's car wash. If you've seen my other videos, the Obsessed Garage unboxing, I'll put a link here in the video. That'll run you through Adams and some of the other products. So I'm not going to go into detail on those. I'm just going to cover the new products in this video. So let's get her washed so we can move on to making it look polished and waxed and the fun part. All right, guys, so we got the car washed. That part's over. Pulled her in the garage. Just a quick note from a compounding, polishing, waxing perspective. If you have any ability to do this inside, under shade, well, inside or outside, but under shade, out of the sun, that's really what you want to do. The sun will dry this stuff more prematurely, and it's just a real hassle. And so we pulled it into the garage here. All cleaned, again, clay barred, foam, washed. So the next step we're gonna do on this is polish. Now, if this car had a lot more scratches, like deep scratches, if it was obvious it had been through like your drive-through car wash, you know, kind of quick deal at the gas station type of thing, you know, had a lot of swirl marks, we would go down to a compound, something that actually has cutting capacity. Basically, the philosophy is that you want to be as least abrasive as possible. And so it's always actually a good idea to start a little less abrasive than you think. Do a test spot. If you still see swirl marks or scratches or spider webs or whatever with the proper lighting, go back. You can always go down, but what you don't want to do is start too aggressive. Basically take layers of clear coat off of the car for no reason, because there's only so much. And so for chemical guys, which is what I'm using for today's demonstration, I'm going to use V38. So this is V38. It is a optical grade final polish, basically. And so it's got some of the least amount of cutting out of the V line from Chemical Guys. It goes from V32, which is pretty heavy cutting, to 34, 36, 38. When I did the 996, when I first kind of did the full paint correction, everything, I started with V36. V36 still has a pretty decent amount of cut. That car had a lot more swirls and scratch marks and things like that. This car really just legitimately doesn't. The other thing about this car is that it's silver. The 996 was black, and so a lot of that was really visible, whereas on this, it may have a similar amount of swirl marks, but frankly, you just don't see them because of the silver paint. You know, silver is probably one of the most forgiving car colors known to man. It stays clean looking when it's dirty. It does not show scratches very much. And so I'm gonna start with 38 precisely because I can always go back to 36. What I don't wanna do is start at like 34, take a bunch of clear coat off this car, and at the end of the day, I didn't need to do that. So we're gonna do V38. I'm gonna use a microfiber cutting pad. So this is a Hex Logic pad from Chemical Guys. A lot of people make pads like this, Meguiar's, you name it. But essentially it's a hex pad, it's microfiber. This one is particularly made for something with a little bit of a cutting property to it. There are pads that are specifically designed for waxes and polish. I'm actually gonna hand do the sealant and the wax on this. 2 reasons. One, that's how it was demonstrated by Matt at Obsessed Garage. So I'm sort of hesitant to take a polisher to this thing and go crazy with the next 2 products. But also because it's just really not that big a car. When you're cutting, or trying to really remove scratches with a cutting compound, doing it machine is the way to go, because you really want to get, frankly, a lot of motion, a lot of passes, a lot of abrasion to have that work. But when you're really just doing waxes and polishes and just trying to bring up the shine and the depth of the paint, you can frankly do that by hand. There's maybe less of an argument to be made that doing that mechanically is the way to go. So I'm gonna use for at least this stage as well, the torque. Makes life a lot easier. One thing you wanna be sure you do when you get these is place these little marks that you can see here around the outside. This will allow you to understand when your pad is spinning and when it's not. And so what you want to do is to give this enough pressure to where this spins pretty slowly and is not just spinning freely, but doesn't quite stop either. And so this will really help you kind of understand what your pad's doing when it's spinning as fast as it's spinning. So let's get it polished with V38 and then we'll move on to sealant and wax. Okay, so we got the V38 polish step done. Definitely difference. I don't know if you'll be able to tell, you know, completely in the video, but I can tell you for sure that made a difference. So again, you know, original paint, definitely in very good shape by the previous owner. Much appreciated there. But, you know, it definitely, you can tell had not been polished because just this first step is a huge difference in look in terms of what it was. I went ahead and did two things here, just FYI. I polished the taillights. Okay, so those are much shinier, which is a good step. And then I also polished all the glass. And so you can use V38 on the glass. So I did all glass surfaces with that. I'm gonna coat those with a product I'll tell you about here in a second further in the video, but always a good idea to just polish your glass. In terms of compounding glass, compounder beware is probably what I'd say. You're not gonna be able to get out scratches and things from glass typically, but if they just need a polish to kind of give them a very bright and shiny appearance, then as you can see, V38 does the trick. So next up, we will start with the polymer sealant, and I'll give you a lot more detail on that because that is one of the new products from Obsessed Garage. All right, guys, so we are done with the polish step. Now we're gonna move on to sealant. And so for the 996, I actually was using a ceramic coating. Liked certain things about ceramic coating. There's certainly ease of use. You know, once you get it on, to be clear, it's more difficult to put on. You kind of have to be careful, really follow directions. But once you get it on, you know, washes are super simple. What I don't love about it, to be honest, especially on the black car, I mean, maybe on silver it's not as much of a big deal, but what I did not like on black is that you know, any kind of scratches or swirl marks or whatever are basically in there for a long time. There's no way to polish it, wax it, what have you. I mean, it is what it is. So the last 18 months, 12 months, 24 months, frankly, depending on how often you drive, once those scratches get in, they're in. And so short of compounding the whole thing with a heavy compound to take off the ceramic coating, you basically have those scratches stuck in there. So I'm gonna go with a sealant and a wax for now, because honestly I have the time and the setup to maintain this car. And so that'll give me more flexibility around kind of dealing with micro scratches and things like that. So that's the plan. So what I picked up is Jess Car. This is a product from Obsessed Garage, from Matt Moorman's recommendation. Gotta be honest, the bottle's like super old school. I kind of like that, it's kind of cool. In his description, he was like, hey, this is like older technology, but in his opinion, this in combination with this Colinite wax I got, which I'll show you here in a second, is like the best combination that he's had. So we're gonna see how it looks on this car. You know, he did just use it on a project for a new M5 he got, which is in silver. So that did give me some good context for silver car and kind of how this might work. So it's called Jess Car Power Lock Plus. Is available from obsessedgarage.com. There'll be links to all the products that I use from top to bottom, include from clay bar all the way to this in the description. But Jess Car Power Lock Plus is the product. It's a polymer sealant. We're gonna do one coat of this Gonna hand apply it with just a nice little microfiber pad and then buff it off. Basically the rule of thumb is you kind of can do most of the car, and then by the time you've done that in 20 or 30 minutes, that's the cure time, and then you can come right back and buff it. So we'll do this, we'll do a couple coats of the Colonite, which I'll show you and kind of describe that product as well. And then we'll be done. And it should be good for at least 6 months is kind of the hope, 6 to 8, call it, of protection. You can always top it with some things. I'm gonna top this with bead maker after the Colonite, so we'll do that as the last step. But let's go ahead and get the Power Lock Plus on. All right, guys, so we have finished the Jescar Power Lock step. I can tell you that this stuff is super legit. One of the main characteristics of this is that it's like crazy smooth. This is something Matt talked a lot about in his video where he sells this. And so having put it on, I can tell you that it's nuts how smooth it is. But yeah, it looks awesome. Definitely gave the car a lot of shine. What it's kind of missing is depth. And so the last step we're gonna do is Colonite for wax. So we're gonna apply basically 2 coats of that. It is a wax. It's again, it's sort of old school, which I think is kind of cool. You know, so instead of like a lot of the new products, again, the concept is that some of the older ones are tried and true and really work well. So we're gonna do 2 coats of the Colonite wax with just a microfiber pad, buff it off with a towel. And then the last step is some bead maker over top. That'll give it just a little bit more of that kind of water shedding characteristic. Just a tiny bit more of what bead maker does, which I've covered in another video that is linked here. So yeah, that's the next step. So we'll put this on, and then I'll get some video of the final results just so you guys can see kind of the whole process start to finish, what we ended up with. All right, guys, so that is that. Just finished up the coats of Colonite wax, and I have to say the combination of the Jescar and the Colonite is pretty remarkable. So again, it might be hard to tell on camera, but I can tell you in person that the difference between where this started and where it's ended up after the V38 polish, the Jescar Pro Lock sealant, and the Colonite wax is pretty awesome. So for a silver car, you know, this thing's got a super deep and shiny finish, which frankly, as anyone who has one knows, is actually quite hard to achieve on a silver car. So I'm super pleased. I think the products from Obsessed Garage definitely lived up. I think that'll be my go-to. This is kind of a you know, every 6 to 8 month type of exercise. And yeah, we'll stick with this in lieu of ceramic coating for the time being. So hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what you see on the channel, you know, detailing Porsche culture, blogging, all these kind of things, please, you know, give it a like and a subscribe, and stay tuned for the next episode.